this is the worst disruption he's seen in 16 years. And the problem is the airline's outdated scheduling software.
From what I can tell, Southwest is unable to locate even where their own crews are, let alone their own passengers, let alone baggage.
That just happened this past winter break. What a mess. Southwest found out the hard way. Without good software, you're gonna fail. And this is the latest proof software is eating the world, and it's far from done. Thousands of stranded passengers is just one obvious indicator. The world is full of problems, and you can play a role in solving it. Let's get started. Southwest Airlines had to shut down for more than a week because their software systems were more than 20 years out of date. Their customer service software was all manual and didn't link up with the software to tell if a flight happened or not, and then fell back to manual call scheduling when it was broken. When it broke, it destroyed the airline for more than a week. And this happened even when there was a plane on the ground ready to go, fully staffed with crew.
So this is a portion of an email that's circulating among Southwest pilots written by a senior pilot. And it begins, Southwest Airlines has imploded. Their antiquated software system has completely fried. Planes are parked. Crews are stranded in the airports with the passengers, volunteering to take the passengers in parked planes, but the software won't accept it.
And this seems ridiculous today because we are so used to great consumer software like Instagram or TikTok, which we might use every day, and it works so well. Even a 30-year veteran pilot knows that this is not how it should work. That's not how it always was. This is actually a big breakthrough for someone like that to be able to know, hey, this tech is not working. And this is a big breakthrough for us, the people who can build technology, because if everyone can see it, now they're gonna pay for it. 30 years ago, they didn't even know this was a thing they wanted. In the 1980s, Steve Jobs talked about what a computer really is, a bicycle for the mind.
Scientific American, I think it was, did a study in the early 70s on the efficiency of locomotion. They measured how much energy does it take for a goat to get from here to there. They ranked them, they published a list, and the Condor won. The Condor took the least amount of energy to get from here to there. And man didn't do so well, came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. But fortunately, someone at Scientific American was insightful enough to test man with a bicycle. And man with a bicycle won, twice as good as the Condor, all the way off the list. And what it showed was that man as a tool maker has the ability to make a tool to amplify an inherent ability that he has.
What software does is extend people's ability from merely what they can keep in their minds to suddenly something far more expansive. In the same way, the book allowed us to transcend having to learn things the hard way over and over again. The computer is an infinite book that can connect us to every other human on the planet, but also with near unlimited knowledge and ability to coordinate. But you might say Steve Jobs said this was happening in the early 1980s. 40 years ago. Is it too late? I remember graduating in 2003 and thinking the internet's over, the web's over, but it wasn't. In fact, what we called Web 2.0 was just getting started. Zuckerberg started Facebook the year after I thought it was too late. I started working on mobile phone software, even though I had a huge head start in building websites from my experience designing database-backed websites since 1996 as a teen. I regret leaving Web 2.0 early, but then returned to it, starting a blog platform 5 years later in 2008. Mark Andreessen created the web browser, but when he was in school, he was worried he had missed the personal computer boom. Luckily, he went on to create the first web browser in Mosaic and Netscape, so he wasn't late at all. After becoming a VC, he wrote the famous essay, Why Software is Eating the World. He wrote, 6 decades into the computer revolution, 4 decades since the invention of the microprocessor, and 2 decades into the rise of the modern internet. All of the technologies required to transform industries through software finally works and can be widely delivered at global scale. And embedded in that is the reason why we're not done. We're still early on the hill climb of developing technology to solve the problems of society.
We have some of these markets now that are just so big that I think the hill climbing might go for a lot longer. And so, like, just as an example, SaaS applications, like, we're probably still at the beginning of the hill climb on that one. Web3 is earlier in the process, but like, if Web3 does what we think it's going to do, then that's going to be like a 25-year climb.
To understand the future, sometimes we have to turn to the past. In the 80s, this is what they were saying, and it all turned out to be true.
Integrating computers into the workplace evolved from the basic need and curse of almost every office: producing, manipulating, and storing written information. Like the original number-crunching computers used in science and mathematics, business automation systems are paper crunchers and time crunchers, squeezing ledgers and files onto disks and opening flexible communication lines of enormous capacity.
Paper crunching and time crunching was what they said at the time. What about now? Here are 4 frontiers I'm most interested in right now: coordination, marketplaces, robotics, and group decision-making. First is coordination, and I can't think of a better example than what we just talked about with Southwest, or the lack thereof. This was a $20 billion market cap company that was using totally manual coordination. Computers are amazing at optimization and coordination, but only if the investment is made to create the software to solve it. Anywhere there's a file cabinet, fax machine, or call center, there's gonna be this kind of opportunity to replace it with finely designed software. Second is marketplaces. Things like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Instacart come to mind for me. When 2 sides of the market meet, they provide something that has never existed before. In all of these cases, software meant that a whole new set of supply in a marketplace suddenly comes online, and new behaviors like staying in homes you never could have had access to or getting a ride when you couldn't before all become possible. Third is robotics, which even in the 1980s required a special understanding that it was not merely hardware, but a mix of hardware and software. Here's Steve Jobs talking about what they had to do to make it work back then.
And the first people we hired in the factory were some software engineers. We convinced them to move from R&D into software, which was not easy. We had to give them bonuses, we had to cajole them, we had to promise them they could come back if they hated it. And they went over there, and we said, this is really just a software problem with interesting I/O devices called robots. And we do the software top to bottom, and we have now some extraordinarily advanced robots in the factory. And our computers are built start to finish on the key components completely untouched by human hands.
Computers can now see, and they couldn't back in the 80s. So can you imagine what we can do now 40 years later? They can operate in the natural world. I funded robotics startup Formic because of exactly this. The most surprising thing they discovered as a startup was that there are tens of thousands of factories across America and the world where they aren't using robotics in places that would yield upwards of 100% annual returns, cash on cash. It's unbelievable. It's just a no-brainer. When you have that kind of incentive, all it takes is a startup like Formic to help unlock those returns. Finally, group decision making. I'm the new president and CEO at YC now, and one of the things that made Y Combinator incredible from the beginning was software Paul Graham wrote himself. That allowed the early team, including Jessica Livingston, Trevor Blackwell, and Robert Morris, to read thousands of applications and make smarter decisions together, much more like a unified team. And it was in that spirit that drove me to build Bookface, the social network at YC that's used by 1 in 3 alums every single day. When I left to found Initialized Capital, we did it again, building software called Folio, which drives all day-to-day decision-making for investing and helping companies there. Most people might think of YC as an incubator, but I truly think of it as actually a community-powered software company. It's software plus great experiences in person, building connections that enabled YC in the first place. And that's what makes it special ongoing. The returns speak for themselves, both at YC and Initialized. Some of the most astonishing outcomes I've ever seen have come from smart people working together, making better decisions as a group. These organizations have been able to find and fund some of the best founders in the world. And it wasn't a lone wolf approach. It was always as a team. If you zoom out, This is possible everywhere where there are decisions being made. All the world is reforming into a global brain, and each organization done right will make decisions in a distributed fashion, a local brain. Truly, organizations can start transcending the classic problem that you're only as good as the individuals. Software can bind teams together in ways that create infinity number of 1 + 1 = 3 situations. These are not zero sum. It's the most growth mindset thing about software I've ever seen. So what does all of this mean? This ongoing revolution, and the revolution continues. The amazing thing is these platforms stack. PC to internet to mobile and social. Now you can get access to people and capital in ways that you've never before had access.
Most people throughout human history who have been like super smart and super curious and super ambitious and willing to work hard, most of them have not ever gotten to one of these, cities that I was talking about. Most of them never worked in an advanced field. Like most of them were doing subsistence farming, or they were working in, other kinds of, whatever. They were doing whatever was the local thing to do. Most of the people who could have composed great music never got the chance to. They never got the training. They never had access to the culture. They never had the ability to produce music. Like they just couldn't do it. And you could say that's true of everything from music to art to books to, to science to like every field of human activity. And the internet really is like the great equalizer, leveler, opportunity machine, right, for basically anybody on the planet who's curious with an internet connection to be able to learn and explore and start to create and start to join and meet like-minded people. So there's a collective effect, like in my optimistic moments, I kind of think of it as like humanity as sort of a group organism, like the true global society, is actually just waking up for the first time.
It was computers and software that changed my life fundamentally. All the world is being remade by code, and it's just getting started. It's not too late, because we know large parts of the world have no access to these benefits of great software, and that's the good news. There's so much more to do, and if you can understand how technology can solve those problems in the world and you can build it, you're ready to build our future. Are you ready? What line of code will you write? That's it for this week. If you're new to the channel, please click like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. Technology changed my life for the better, and I wanted to change everyone's, including yours. I'll see you next week.